in a world that can be so negative and can
Mm.
be so hard to see the light at, I like to call it the light at the end of the tunnel, uh,
Yeah.
that it's hard to stay positive, but we don't see the shadows when we're looking at the sunshine.
Choosing to look at the sunshine rather than shadows is a conscious mindset shift. It changes how we lead and show up every day, basically, how we experience life. In this episode, personal development coach Janice Debo joins the conversation to share how shifting our internal narratives can completely transform scattered teams. By understanding her unique framework based on the individual elements, leaders can replace negative assumptions with intentional gratitude, build foundational trust, and run toward purposeful goals.
This is Leadership Sound Bites. Real leaders, real moments, real growth.
Welcome to this week's episode of Leadership Soundbites. My very special guest, Janice Debo. She is, I love this part, she's CEO, but has a different meaning, Chief Everything Officer of Janice Debo. Is it, when I wrote it down, it's training and coaching? There's something else, personal development.
Personal development
Yeah,
training.
training and coaching. So it's basically the same space that I'm in, which I freaking love. And I love the fact that you and I approach things differently. You have different frameworks, all that stuff. So I think it's awesome. Um, Welcome to the conversation, Janice. And
You.
I know you have a quote, and I would love to hear it, and then we can go from there.
Okay. It is keep your face to the sunshine and you will not see the shadow. And that is by Helen Keller of all people. Um,
She has to feel the sunshine when she was there, so that at least
yeah.
you know it was facing it. But what does it mean for you? Why that quote?
Well, in a world that can be so negative and can
Mm.
be so hard to see the light at, I like to call it the light at the end of the tunnel, uh,
Yeah.
that it's hard to stay positive, but we don't see the shadows when we're looking at the sunshine. The shadows are behind us.
Yeah. What comes to mind for me, and this is something, and I'm sure you have it all the time with people that you're in the room with too, is the importance of reframing things and our mindset when we go in. Like, are we going in looking for all the stuff that proves that we're miserable and we don't like working here? Or are we going in and the subconscious is scanning for, what do I like about this? What am I grateful for? What worked out well today?
Right.
Because those are significantly different. And so when you talk about that with the sunshine and the shadows, it's like it's the intentionality that each of us have to go, you know what? I'm going to look at the bright side, the upside. And this
Right.
isn't about, blowing smoke, but
Mhm.
it's about sending the message to the rest of you that the upside matters to me so that I start scanning for that.
Yes, absolutely. And we can do that with people too, because oftentimes it's hard to see the good in somebody that you've got an issue with. But yet there's good in everybody, even the worst. And I think the more we see the light and the sunshine, the better the world will be. Just look
Hmm.
at, like you said, gratitude. And wherever you are, you might not like where you are at the moment, be it work or home or whatever. But looking at the bright side can help you get through things you didn't think were possible.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I watched the shift with clients in the room. What what is your experience with that? Are there tips and tricks, hacks, if you will, that you've come across that would be great to share with people? Because it can be challenging
Mhm.
if you don't know tools, tricks, hacks. When people just go, look at the bright side, and you're like, there isn't one.
Well, you can always start with I can see my eyes are working today. My ears are working today. Oh, I can talk. Okay, so we can start there. I can smell. I can eat. If you've got teeth, you can chew. And I
Hmm.
think you start with the very basics. Look at your body and go, okay, I've got legs, I've got feet, I can walk. However, imperfectly, I can walk.
Mm-hmm.
And I think starting with the body, appreciation for our body. So if you're working at a computer and you're miserable, can you see the computer? Oh,
Mm.
yeah, there are people who can't see in this world and they can't do what you do. The best thing you can do is start looking for what you've got that you can appreciate. And that if I think starting with the physical body is a great place to start.
Mm. Um, the gratitude expressing, because I've few different podcasts I've listened to and then other meditations is exactly to the point that you just talked about. Express gratitude for the body and what it goes through. It's gotten us this far in life, right? To your point, I mean, our feet, we're walking on our feet with whatever weight we have down on our feet. I mean, they're the lowest point that we have, the sole, that like everything is funneling down to our feet.
Mhm.
The thing that I also find, it's not a one and done.
No.
It is a practice that we get into. It's like every morning when I get up, the I'm looking for not the oh my God, here we go again, but it's going to be a great day.
Hmm.
I'm thanking, the universe basically for, all the gifts that I'm going to get that day. I'm anticipating it and throwing it out. One of the things that I love that makes me smile, I don't do it every day, but it's like, what magic am I going to create today? So it's just things like that, that it's the consistency of setting the expectation and the
Hmm.
intention to look for this stuff because otherwise we don't see it and it's happening around us.
Right. Right. I totally agree. And I do this new practice that I've been practicing for a couple months now called it's called positive intelligence.
Yeah.
And it has helped me to reframe the very essence of little things that such as there's a practice called PQ. So you might have heard, you probably heard of it. You're nodding.
Yeah.
So yeah, so in the morning when I wake up, I can feel. So I've got hands and I feel my pillowcase and my pillow. I go, "Oh yeah." And then something else beside me. And then as I get up, continue like, "Wow, yeah, I can feel that. I can hear the dog barking across the street. Well, I might not like the noise, but it's a dog across the street and I can hear it."
Mm-hmm.
Just the very basic practice. If you think about, there are so many people that don't have eyes and ears or feet. We're talking about feet. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that have to sit in wheelchairs all day. There are people that can't think like we think. We've got clear heads most of the time, depending on how much caffeine you need. I don't, but, but just being grateful for the little things, as I've started doing that, it has changed. And I've always been pretty grateful in life, but I would
Yeah.
have so many moments I'm like, going through a lot of stuff I've been through. Then I realized, wait a minute. I used to be in a place where it was noisy and trauma filled and very difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And the other day I went, oh, wait a minute. It's quiet. It's quiet. And that for me was like very liberating to realize I had moved on and I'm in a place of, being still, being quiet, and I didn't have to compete with
Yeah.
other noise. It is starting with the little things and being grateful.
Um, you remind me it's building the habits and developing the muscle, right?
Yes.
So positive intelligence, when you were talking about PQ exercises, um, is it's about being present and
Mhm.
getting back and centered to paying attention to that stuff. Like I remember because I went through that 6-week program that they have, and it's like you're walking along practicing um, breathing. And it's
Mhm.
like, so breathe in through your nose and exhale through your nose and pay attention to the temperature of the air while
Yes.
you're breathing. And it's like, it's those little subtle things that it requires you to block out the rest of the stuff except this thing that you're focusing on, right? And to your point about the noise,
Yeah.
it's like, what is the farthest away sound you can hear?
Right.
Yeah, what's the closest sound that you can hear? And it helps us build up the muscle that when we're present, which we learn as coaches, right? But when you're present in the moment, be present.
Exactly.
That it's not just in body only, it's body, mind, energy, everything. Boom, I'm here and I'm engaged and I'm listening.
Right.
And for that, those moments that you're doing that, the rest of the noise, if you will, just drops away.
Hmm. It does. It does. One little thing I've started doing in the morning, and this isn't actually on the PQ list, but
You
I've
went
made,
rogue. You
I
went rogue.
it's my own PQ. But I like to get up when I'm opening my curtains to go ahead, no matter the temperature, I'm talking below freezing or whatever. But I open the window and I stop and I let the air hit me, and then I do like, okay, what's the furthest sound? Is it? But I love feeling the air on my face and just breathing in fresh air, taking a few minutes to open up and welcome the day.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's those moments of being fully present.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing I started doing, this is not that well, I don't know, it might be for somebody in leadership.
Yeah.
I mean, really, I love to color. I used to color as a kid. I was such an avid, coloring books. And as an adult, in the last few weeks, I picked it back up.
Really?
I gotta tell you, I've got a friend who she she makes coloring books. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love it. I bought pencils and I sit and it's very healing and very present.
It
Um,
is. I've heard information about that it is.
it is.
The closest I got, and it was coloring, but it wasn't like a book filled with all the stuff, is I don't have a color printer. And so
Oh,
I wanted to make a birthday card for my BFF. And so I found images that I liked, and so I blew them up and printed it off on a quarter and folded the stuff so it's black and white. So I had to fill it in and color. But I did, and it was very rewarding.
hmm.
It was a weird thing to take this just very flat black and white, thing and bring it to life. So yeah. But I've heard there's adult coloring books, not that they're
So,
risque or anything, but I mean they're intentionally meant for
no,
adults.
yeah, they're a little more detailed and complicated than the children ones.
Yeah.
And my mother, who passed a few years ago, she really did. It helped with her Parkinson's. She colored
Okay.
a lot, so it helped her focus and it helped her deal with the shakes and the Parkinson's. But
Yeah.
what I've read about coloring is it helps heal the brain and the body, and it's very healing exercise. So if I were to work in an office that I wasn't CEO of, I would say I'd have coloring books and pencils and I'd lock the door and I'd say, this is my time.
I'm on break. I'm coloring.
Yes.
It is soothing. And so I'm sure there's something about that. And then the whole idea of creating something, it
Yes,
taps into that part as well.
it does.
Um, you and I, like I said in the intro, are in a similar space, approaching it, differently in the way we do stuff. Um, what have you noticed with clients that you're working with lately as far as the opportunities that they have or the things that most help them in their teams? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, their biggest challenges.
Yeah, probably the biggest challenge is the stuff that you're seeing, experiencing, Janice, and then some of the ways that you're helping them, solve them, close gaps, work through whatever that may be.
Well, I've worked with teams and a lot of individuals. And most recently, I noticed that everybody's scattered and they're they're just all over the place. They can't focus on this or that or the other, and they're not focusing, and they need somebody to come in and help them be accountable to, okay, what are you trying to do here? Where are you trying to go? And I would say that's the biggest one with the entrepreneur, individual business owner. With
Yeah.
the teams, however, and groups, that becomes more of a trust thing to work on and communication. So
Hmm.
trust building for teams and groups and communication. I love working with that stuff. Now, I don't know if I've told you what I utilize, but let's educate your audience.
Well, share it. Yeah.
I use the path elements assessment, and the path elements are based on earth, wind, fire, and water.
Mm-hmm.
I happen to be really high in the water category, which means I flow easily, I adapt, and am able to move and flow to different.
Form to any shape that you're in or around. Yeah.
Yeah, and well, I jokingly but seriously say, and the second level for, I mean, the second one for me is wind. So watch out, there's a hurricane there sometimes. But I use that assessment, and when I get people's elemental profile, I can work with them most effectively because if they're a fire, you work with them one way, but if they're another water, you have to work with them another way. Along with what they're trying to achieve, you work in that realm of the elements.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It was like Earth, for instance. Earth is somebody who might be an accountant or a bookkeeper, somebody that just like stay at the desk,
Mm-hmm.
leave me alone. I want results. That's all they want. They just want to, okay, so they're just like, that's their little space. Let 'em
Yeah.
be. Now, if somebody is a salesman out there trying to sell a product who is an earth, guess what? That is not where they belong. That they're they're not going to relate as easily as a water and a wind,
Yeah.
because waters and winds are very relational, and that makes us more effective with the public
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of thing. Where you got a fire, they're typically really high level leaders who are
Yeah.
just go-getters. They want results too, but they move faster than earth. So
Mm-hmm.
I love seeing that come together. I had a team that was a leadership team of 10 people, mostly men. I think there were 2 women on the team, and 6 out of 10 were fires.
Mm. Oh,
Oh,
okay.
oh, when I sat down with them, that was the first thing I said. Okay, guys, we're going to talk about this because I can see why you guys are doing this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Everybody's trying to lead, and there's there's only so many leaders, but I was able to help them understand each other and how to relate to each other and not run over top of each other. And they weren't, there wasn't a lot of trust and
Yeah.
not effective communication. So that's how I love to work with that particular group, or even an individual who's in an office that might be having problems, but
So so it's fire, earth,
wind and
um,
water.
wind, and water. Okay. I'm trying to, when you were talking, and most everything has four when you talk about stuff like this. I'm certified in DISC. And so my brain went to DISC as you're describing fire, which are most likely Ds. They're typically not the majority of people, but I guess it just depends. Um, but I think what you're talking about, and which makes it's powerful for teams, is to replace the underlying narrative they may have about why this other person or people are doing what they're doing.
Right,
Because a lot of times it can be they're trying to undermine me, they don't care, they don't, whatever it may be. And the reality is they don't know. So they're doing what they're doing and they're not cognizant of the impact it could potentially have on you or others.
right.
And so when we start creating that awareness, whether it's across disc or what you were talking with path or I think endiogram or another one. I mean, there's so many others that are out there, Myers-Briggs, all that.
Yeah.
It's the ability to create awareness around that we're all wired differently
Yes.
so that we can show up with a different story. And I always ask people, I said, switch the language. If you find yourself getting irritated with something, ask yourself what would cause a well-intentioned, that's the key, by the way, well-intentioned person to do or say this thing. And then you put it in a totally different realm because I guarantee you when we're getting upset with somebody, we're not assuming they're well-intentioned.
Right. Right.
What is
Exactly.
your biggest success with that one?
With the path.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I worked with an electrical company. That was the one that had the leadership team of 10,
Yeah.
and the owner was in the group. And so at first I was like, okay, so I'm working with the big guy, the big dog. And yet and his son was one of the leadership teams too. I'm like, I got a family thing going on here. But in this group, the company had brought in people from the outside, and it had been a family run thing for all this time. But they brought in outsiders who were not part of the family.
Yeah.
That was the trust.
Mm.
But once they understood that their operations manager was very earth, just leave her alone, let her do her job. And they felt intimidated at first. I'm like, that's how she works, that's how she operates. And I told them flat out, I said, you need to listen to her because she's got the best intentions for the company.
Hmm.
Knows what she's doing. But then they brought in a financial guy, and he's my element. I'm talking earth. I mean, he was water and wind, almost parallel with the way I
A
am.
financial guy?
I know, yeah.
Oh,
I,
that's unusual.
I
Okay.
think I think he's yeah, but he was there to help grow the company and to make
Right.
outside connections.
Oh, okay. Like
Yeah,
business development. Okay.
I think that was probably more it. It's been a little bit.
Yeah.
So when I get a lot of young people, so we're talking a bunch of high flyers, youth, new people, and they're all just all over the place. And and the first thing I had to do was sit them down with the group and like everybody pull out your assessment and we're going to talk about this and then bring up problems. And
Yeah.
yeah, they had me trained on communication, but that was after I talked about the elemental makeup. But we laughed a lot. We certainly laughed a lot. The owner's son got picked on more than anybody. It was really quite entertaining, and yet probably the most successful thing I've done in the realm of training.
Yeah.
Because the owner walked me to the like it was a 2-day training that he walked me to my car at the end, and I said, well, what did you get out of this? What do you think? He goes, um, I like that you called me on my stuff and that you weren't afraid of that. I'm like, nope, I'll call you on your stuff.
Yeah.
And I did. There were some things he was doing that weren't in the best interest of the leadership team. And
Yeah.
and overall, they saw an improvement. So but it's one of the most significant reviews and evaluations on my website
Yeah.
of
I
what they
love that.
yeah, it was
That's,
fun.
and the thing is, anything's possible. So, it's one of those things that, especially if we go back to assuming the best intent,
Hmm.
majority of the times people don't go to work to piss other people off, to make life miserable, to do the worst job they can do. And so we have to realize that something's getting in the way of the intention they set for themselves. Let's say I want to do great work and I'm not creating that experience. When
Right.
we can create the environment to be able to have awareness and be able to have discussions and plant different seeds, people walk away and you can feel, I know I can, and I'm assuming it happened with you in the room that day, the diffusion of it just kind of releases. And
Hmm.
it's like, oh, which is where the laughter comes from, which is opposite of people getting pissed off at each other. It's
Right.
like, oh, that's what it is.
Yeah, I love that they can laugh at themselves and laugh at each other. One of the younger ones that's on leadership team, I forget what his department was, but I told the whole group, I said, he really needs to be in sales because he was that good and that um
Like charismatic.
very yeah, that's the word.
Yeah.
Very charismatic, fun loving, and I don't know if they took it to heart. I didn't hear back on that. But but he really, really is ideal for although he was fire, I forget what his second element was, but he had the go-getter. He could do it and he could run a sales department. So, I tried to let him know straight up, everybody's trying to do their best.
Yeah.
But let's put some understanding and try and it was a trust building. I mean, I this is a fun exercise with what I do. So
Yeah.
so you take the people and all the fires go to one corner, all the waters another, all the winds, and then all the earth. I think the earth was by themselves. No, there might have been two. But the fires was a big group and they were making the most noise. And they had to convince me why they were the best and that fires were number one. Well, obviously
Yeah.
all elements are needed to balance any company.
Yeah.
So, but it was funny to get them going to try to sell me why you're the best. I'm like, yeah, fire is very destructive. You can be very, very destructive.
Mm-hmm.
And a leader that, and we all are leaders, and you can be an earth and a leader. You just lead
Mm-hmm.
differently. For winds and waters like myself, we lead in a flow fashion. It's with compassion, it's relational
Mm-hmm.
leading, and I'm not a results oriented. I mean, I want my clients to get results, but I'm more concerned on the relationship area of
Yeah.
results. Um, but it is very effective, and they loved it. Matter of fact,
It's fun to create awareness on stuff like that. There was a group that I was with, there were 28 of them. And I, similar to what you did, I grouped them in like similar styles.
Mhm.
But a lot of times what happens is people can go into it of like, well, I'm a D or I'm an I or I'm an S or I'm a C. And it's like, so, and if you're an S, then you're like me. And it's like, yes and no.
Mhm.
So the activity there was that you have all these preferences, my preferred environment, my, three different areas, work environment, work processes, different things. And so they had to individually just select their preference, whatever came to mind. Don't overthink it because people tend to.
Oh, yeah.
And then go into these groups where you're with other similar people and then share your preferences because it's important to surface the awareness that there's still so much difference in the similarities. So you could have a fire, you could
Mhm.
have six fires like you had, and they're different.
Yeah.
They show up differently as a fire. There's attributes that are common a lot of times or similar, but it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that it's this cookie cutter fire that showed up on the team. And that's the other part to, I think it's important for awareness for people is that you're similar, understand communication styles, and you're not the same.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah, we do tend to want to put people in a box, but it's interesting to see because I can work with, I've not worked with a family, although I did assessments on a whole family. And I did. I mean, I didn't coach them together. I just coached
Yeah.
the mom. But I did have a meeting with the mother and daughter who happened, now the whole family works in the business. But I gave them all the assessments and I say, you see, now this is what's going on. This is why you guys are doing this. And
Yeah.
and it's very effective to help. Now families are harder than businesses because you got to live with them. But
Yeah.
but but it's fun to help them see, okay, we're similar, but we're not exactly alike.
Hmm. Yeah. It's just cool. It's just so, it feels so good to be able to experience the shift in people
Yes,
because it happens real time.
yes,
The lingering effect can go on, and then now they have, especially when you bring them together to do some training like that, group setting, we have a common language,
yes.
whatever it is, right?
Right.
And it's a really cool thing. Yeah.
It is. It was another thing they had me sit in on. They were doing their presentations. They had me sit in and weigh in on the problems because they each had to get up and share the problems and try and help the group try to find solutions. That was interesting because I was embraced as like the family. I was
Yeah.
embraced with that whole thing because they they valued what I had to say, especially
Yeah.
after the assessments and that type of thing. It was just a real, I call it in the South, I would say that was a hoot.
Okay. Yeah. Um, it's a cool thing to see the progress and then people embrace it and they want to get feedback in other areas because that's what that reminds me of. It's like, well, what
Mhm.
else could you help us with? What other view do you have that we're not aware of yet?
Right.
Yeah, I love it. Um, Thank you for your time. There's not often that I get to indulge in being in the room with another, coach and leadership development that works with teams that I can learn from as well from that perspective, Janice. And so I truly appreciate the time. What are one or two things that, as we wrap up today, that you want people to walk away with?
I think like in life, in business, just be yourself.
Hmm.
be, if you're not happy with what you're doing, if you're in a position that you don't feel right about, if you're trying to, what they say, put a square peg in a round hole or whatever,
Yeah.
yeah, take a look at it. See what your heart's telling you. I want people to really do a little self-examination of, why am I so miserable? Ask that
Mhm.
why. And don't blame other people, okay? Don't say it's because Joe, blah, blah, blah. It's not Joe, it's you, okay? Take responsibility for it and say, why am I miserable? Joe can only have so much. Okay. If you give Joe too much weight, okay, he could make you miserable, but but don't value somebody's opinion over your own, and find what's inside of you that resonates and say, okay, then I need to look in a different direction. But be true to yourself.
Mhm.
Be true to yourself. Because
Yeah.
in any business, a lot of issues are going to be because you're just doing something you hate.
Yeah. Um, I'm bobbleheading with that. The thing that I would add to that is a nuance, but something to think about is, and it piggybacks on what you're talking about. It's not Joe, it's you.
Mhm.
Is that I go back to Sean Aker from Happiness Advantage, and basically, if I know everything about your external environment, I can only predict 10% of your future happiness.
Mm,
So if people are feeling so miserable and they want to grab the first thing going by, right? I got to get out of here.
yeah.
Just pause, chill for a minute,
Hmm.
right? Get to a point to where you get yourself out of the stress mode, the survivor brain, and you calm.
Right.
And part of that is what we talked about earlier. What are you grateful for? What do you look forward to? So that you can start letting that stuff in. And then make a decision about whether or not you want to go to something else or you want to try and get another job, whatever it may be. Maybe you're going to go out on your own from a place with a higher energy vibration. You're more positive. You are not running from something.
Right.
Because what happens is if you're so negative and so stressed at where you currently are, that person with that energy will show up in any interview that you go into.
Hmm.
So get you right first.
Yes.
Get settled in whatever it is and recognize that it's not my external environment. It is me and the meaning that I'm giving to stuff happening.
Hmm.
Get that shifted, and then take a look to go, do I actually want to leave to go somewhere else? And if I do, what is it I want to do?
Yes.
So yeah, I totally agree.
And don't, and like you said, don't just jump on the first thing that comes
Hmm.
along, because as human beings we just want to escape, and that's
Hmm.
not the answer.
Hmm.
You don't want to be motivated by running away. You
Hmm.
motivated by running towards what it is you want, not away from what you don't want. That is a negative um, mindset. Just take it, like Michelle said, take the time, get out of that panic mode as best you can. Take a walk, take a run if you do that. Sit quiet, put on some music, just be still and say, okay, why am I miserable? Look at yourself, look inside, but don't jump away from something. Don't run away from something. Run
Hmm.
towards something.
Yeah, no, I agree. In fact, I've said that to a few people. Don't run from something, run towards something.
Yeah.
So because you want it, not because you're trying to, leave something and your butt's on fire. But yeah,
Running from the watering hole.
yeah, you're a fire. Go get water. The wind's gonna take you away. Yeah. Um, Thank you, thank you, thank you. I will put contact information for you in the description in YouTube. I appreciate anyone who's liking, sharing, and subscribing. And if you know someone who'd be a great guest on the show, let me know. Have a freaking awesome day on behalf of Leadership Soundbites with Janice and Michelle. Thank you.